Hello, my name is Keeley. Welcome to my channel. I am a cuddle therapist, and today I'm sharing a resource with you that is a masterclass all of its own in boundary setting and getting really comfortable with saying no, even if it's super uncomfortable. The exercise starts by downloading a dating app. There's more to it than that, I promise. You'll download this dating app. And by the way, you can do this even if you are partnered and in a coupled situation where you would need to check in for consent around that. Feel free to check in for consent, but you're not going to go on any dates. So in theory, you absolutely should be able to still do this while you are in some kind of relationship. Also, I will wholeheartedly admit that this exercise skews heavily towards femme-presenting folks. I have done this exercise. I discovered it because I made it up and then tried it, and it worked really well. Too well. It was very uncomfortable, and I have been practicing boundaries and consent for a very long time, so you know it works. But yeah, so it is coming from my personal experience, which I want to fully acknowledge is really different than people who are cis men or mask presenting on dating apps. That experience is a whole different beast. If you are a mask presenting person, or if you identify as a cis male and you have a different experience with this exercise, I would love to know about it. I would love to know what your experience is, so please comment, because research. Here's the exercise. You're gonna download a dating app. Swipe or like or whatever. Do the thing on the app that makes it so that you can potentially connect or chat with people. And only engage in, either strike up or respond to, and engage in conversations with people who you genuinely find interesting. Like this is not a, I'm just gonna talk to anybody kind of a thing. Like you find them interesting. You think that a conversation would be kind of cool. Now here's the trick. From the first moment you say hello or whatever your greeting is, I want you, every time you go to respond to any message or initiate any message, before you type, you're going to take a breath and check in with yourself and ask the question, am I doing this because I genuinely want to? That question can be altered to say, am I doing this because it's fun? Am I doing this because I'm interested? Am I doing this because I find joy or excitement or desire in this activity, in responding or striking up the conversation or initiating conversation? You're gonna do that every single time. And the trick is, the goal is, the moment at which the answer to that question isn't a wholehearted no, you're going to end all dialogue with this person. You're going to, you can do it as politely as you like. I am not advocating for like tearing people down on the internet or on dating apps. I like to use phrases like, thank you so much for the chat, I'm done now, and have a great time. Or, I've enjoyed connecting with you, best of luck on your search, I'm done now. Or like, this conversation's been great, I don't want to participate anymore. Find a way that feels honest, that doesn't feel like doing a ton of emotional labor, to, in 1 or 2 sentences, excuse yourself. Excuse yourself from the conversation. Good things to look out for, like flags to notice, is, are you responding because you're worried about the other person's well-being? Are you responding, and when I say worry, I'm using that term a little bit loosely. Do you feel a familiar pull of obligation, like, well, I started this conversation, or well, I've been participating, so I owe this person, if that word comes to mind, or that feeling of owe or obligation or responsibility or social decorum, or any of those feelings that are more of an explicit, like external mandate, pulling, pushing, rather than something intrinsic, internal, you have the desire to reach out. When you notice that, that's when you're going to end the conversation. End it. And see what happens. See the discomfort that comes up. See if you can't even do it. But I'm going to challenge you too. I think you can. I have a lot of faith that you can. I know for me, when I did this exercise, it was wild. Actually, what I noticed first was the gap. I noticed the gap at when I started to feel the obligation pull, we'll call that, or like the tolerating, or I'm here in service to someone else. I'm not here of my genuine own desire, volition, because this is exciting for me anymore. There was a gap between that moment and when I allowed myself, felt comfortable enough, was willing to end the conversation. And I noticed that the more I practiced, the more that gap got shorter and shorter and shorter. And I got better and better at, as soon as I noticed that I was participating in this conversation for the other person and not for me, not out of a genuine desire to connect, that, man, yeah, it was an interesting journey to get to that point. Another thing I noticed when I experienced this, or when I practiced this a bunch, was I had very creative ways of trying to hide or mask or distract myself from acknowledging that I was there for someone else. What was some of the language that I used in my own head to justify staying in a conversation of, like, this conversation was interesting, and maybe it's just a lull. Maybe they just had an off moment, and I should stay to see if it's interesting again. And then I would stay, and it didn't get interesting again. Or it might get interesting for a second, and then it would be like I was just like it became labor. It became work. It became effort. I would like to also explicitly state, now that I've gone over all those things and how to play this internal game, how to do this exercise, I also want to reiterate, that this is not to tear anyone down. We're also not responsible for other people's well-being that we like randomly met on the internet. So if by me saying, thank you so much for the conversation, have a great day, I'm not interested anymore, if that is like going to ruin someone's life or day, that's not my responsibility. I was genuine in my connection. I was honest and truthful, and I wasn't mean. Saying thank you so much and goodbye isn't mean. You can also use more direct communication, more demonstrative language, and it still not be mean, and you still not have an obligation or responsibility for that other person's well-being. It is really important that we get the message, we understand, internalize, and integrate the message, that we don't owe those people anything besides our own general, like, being in integrity with our values of just compassion. I can have compassion for another human being and say no and be done. And I don't owe them continued conversation. That's not the currency that I pay for being a good person in the world. Yeah. I would really like to know how this exercise goes for all of you. I'd really like to know where your challenge was, where you noticed the sticky parts, the stories come up for you around what you are allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. How did you notice when something was for your enjoyment, or because it was exciting for you, or because it was interesting to you? How did you notice what that felt like? And how did you notice when that shifted? When it started being for someone else, when it started to be obligation or responsibility or something else? What did that feel like in your body? I know I often felt, when I was excited, there was like a lean forward in my body. There was sort of this bubbly, buzzy, vibrational energy. That's too woo-woo. Just think about, like, well, whatever. That's what I felt in my, like, head and eyes and attention. And when it became obligation, there was a heavier feeling right about here in my solar plexus. There was like a dull gray, it felt gray in my stomach. When it started to be more like in the gray, like it was like the opposite of, my brain is weird. It was the opposite of Wizard of Ozing. It's like we went back from Technicolor to gray. Again, this isn't exciting anymore. I want to know what that's like for you. If you hate this exercise, I want to know. So if you're willing to come back, if you're willing to try this, first of all, congrats and awesome. If you're willing to come back to this video and let me know how that experience was for you, I'm so grateful. And out of obligation, I always have to say, please like and subscribe and follow if you're willing. I'm so awkward. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to me. And sincerely, I hope this helps. All right, Cuddle Monsters. I'll see you later.